Check. Check. Yo.
Hello? Hey guys. How's everybody doing? Yay! Thank you guys so much for coming. Where's Ben? Benny? Ben, come here. And John? John, come here. Yo, I want everyone to make some noise for Ben and John, who played a huge part in making all these awesome images. Yay! And I also want everyone, Danny Gallagher, come here. And Maddie, I think she went to go move her car, but they've both been DJing and they did so good. Make some noise for Danny and Maddie, AK Sports. Woo! So thank you so much for coming. This is our first time doing something at an art gallery, and it's a big occasion. We're going into outer space, and I'm gonna play some music. And then we're gonna have a little chat. Oh, Maddie, come one more time. She's here. AK Sports, make some fucking noise. So I'm gonna play some music. I just dropped this project called Voyager, and it's the beginning of a new series on our label, Fantastic Voyage. It's really weird, but yeah, keep on doing your thing. Have some cake, have some drinks, walk at some art, and then we'll have a chat. Is that cool? Yo, okay, here, let me...
Turn this off. Yo, hey, guys, for real, thank you so much for coming out. Turn that off. Check. Yo. Okay, take my earplugs off. All right. Yo, real quick, let's talk. Maddie, Anna, Nikki, can you guys come up? And Andrew Ryce. Yo, so, I'm super, you know, this whole idea of like wanting to talk about music and rave shit in here, maybe, why don't you guys come around? I brought a couple different microphones. I can turn this down. And why don't you guys come on in? Like, if you try to give me a high five. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's great. Yes, Chewy. Tanner, what's good? How you doing? Benji. Yeah, bring it in. Let's talk. Because I know there's a lot of like producers. Yo, hey, if you make music, put your hand up. Yeah, let's go. Awesome. So I feel like, you know, I think that's good context because, you know, us talking about rave music, you know, I think it's just an interesting time, right? Like, you know, dance music has evolved so much in the US past 10 years since I was in high school and like began putting out music, and it feels like something is happening right now, and it's hard to put, you know, for me, it's hard to put my finger on it exactly, and that's why I wanted to, you know, have some homies along with me to talk about their perspectives on what's happening, because I think we're going into this really positive time where you don't need to just make one kind of music, you don't need to just do one thing as an artist, and the people next to me, I feel like are really embodying that. So make some noise one more time. AK Sports, Nikki Nair, Anna Morgan, and to introduce the homie who will be helping us moderate this whole discussion, make some noise for Andrew Ryce. Sweet. And here, Andrew, why don't you take this mic, say hi.
Hello, I'm Andrew. I'm the music editor for Resident Advisor. I live here in LA. I've lived here for 5 years. That's my biography.
Yes. Awesome. And yeah, so real quick, I think let's go around and why don't we say where we're from and what your name is, what your artist name is, and your first rave experience. Maddie, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, g'day. My name's AK Sports. I'm from Sydney, Australia.
Make some noise! Let's go!
I actually, in terms of like context musically, I was living in London until the Great Sickness, and then I got sent back down under to the Great Jail down there, and I lived by myself in a house in a coastal town of New South Wales, and then I got shipped off to America. So I've been in 3 different spots, which has really influenced me musically. It's a little bit more than what you wanted to know where I was from, but I thought musically it's important.
And first rave experience.
I'd say like the most legitimate, I'm going to say 2. One was in Australia, our biggest festival arguably is Splendour in the Grass, and this happens in winter in July in Byron Bay. And you're not really allowed to do any side shows, but there is a promoter who were the first sort of party starters to bring out techno in Sydney, at least, called Meteoric Vibe Council. And on the Saturday night after the festival, they throw a full-on tunnel rave in an abandoned railway hole. Tunnel rave in a tunnel. I think that's pretty legit, especially for Australia. Actually, I'm not going to say the other one. That one. Thank you.
Tight. Huge flex, the tunnel rave. I don't know how
Yeah, sick. Shout out Meteoric. Shout out Meteoric.
Damn.
And if you're listening, I will be playing at Splendor this year, and I would love to play the tunnel rave this year.
Hey.
Thank you.
And also, before I forget, Hush, Thursday, Warp Mode. Keep Hush
Keep
Thursday.
Hush, yes. It's kind of like Boiler Room, but a little bit more DIY. I'll be throwing that with my Warp Mode gals, Bianca Oblivion and Star Eyes in downtown LA. It's going to be sick. We've got Nikki Nair, Board Lord, myself, Introspect, and Bastion Go. Yeah, playing. So come down if you're around.
Get it. Anna? Make some noise for Anna Morgan. What up?
Yo, what's good, everybody? I am from New York. I'm from the Bronx. My first rave experience, I was 14. It was the Skate Key in the Bronx, and I took ecstasy for the first time, and it saved my life, honestly. The rave saved my life. I don't know if I would still be here if I hadn't found that like point of connection to like music and freedom and community. So it's something that I've been involved with for a really long time because it matters to me.
Beautiful. Nikki Nair, make some noise!
Oh, yeah. I'm Nikki. I'm from Knoxville, Tennessee. I just moved to Atlanta. So now I live there. My first rave was, I don't know if it was, I guess there are also two experiences. The first rave-like thing was probably like seeing Diesel Boy play in Tennessee. And that was great. But it was like more like a concert, I think. It was because it was at a venue. The first rave I went to was in Pittsburgh when I went to college, and it was like this. The flyer had all the DJ names, and next to the DJ name, it had the genre they were playing and like where they were gonna play. So it felt like a real rave thing. I don't know if they have it like that anymore, but it was great.
And Nikki, so yesterday when we were kicking it, you mentioned when you were 19, you were a huge Diesel Boy fan.
Yeah.
And Nikki, for those that don't know, he's the nicest, sweetest person I've ever met. He's so mild-mannered. Was there a moment that you were yelling at Diesel Boy at a show?
Yeah. So what happened? Like I remember like seeing Diesel Boy this was like a few years later when dubstep kind of started becoming like wildly popular in the U.S. and Diesel Boy was playing. And then he played Sub Focus, Time Is Changing, which was like a trancey drum and bass song. And then it dropped into a dubstep song. And I was really drunk and I got really mad. And I was in the front row and I was like, fuck you, Diesel Boy. Like, you need to play drum and bass, not this stuff. I was screaming. Someone had to take me aside.
And I just want to highlight that because, isn't that funny to see where we are now, right? Because it's like, would you be willing to drop a drum and bass track into a bass dubstep banger nowadays, right?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And it's like, what's changed?
I don't know. I mean, in the words of Sub Focus, time is changing.
And on that note, Andrew Ryce. Everyone make some noise for Andrew.
Do you want my first rave experience?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I grew up in a suburb of Vancouver, Canada, pretty sheltered, and I was always really into music. I was definitely into dance music on the internet before I could even go out. And I had a friend from the Bay Area, internet friend, who came up to Vancouver, and he was like, oh, you got to meet these people. So I met them. I met all the dubstep people. This is like 2009. And the first rave I ever went to was Pinch at a warehouse. And it was like the loudest music I'd ever heard. But my favorite moment was after. I was like so nervous. I was like, I went up to Pinch. I was like, hi, my name's Andrew. Like I rave for RA, blah, blah, blah. And he like it just didn't register with him at all. And then the next day he emailed me being like, hey Andrew, like I heard you live in Vancouver. Like we should meet up. And like he just didn't register from the day before that it was me because I was so young. So. But yeah, my early years were all dubstep, so that's my background. Yeah,
Let's go. Hey, yo, who here likes dubstep? Make some noise for Wubs.
Dubstep was huge in Vancouver. We had Code 9 in like 2005.
Wow,
like,
that's really
early
tight.
days, yeah.
Damn. Here, I need to turn this down. And yo, for those that don't know, my name's Justin from LA. And my first rave experience, I told my mom that I was going to a concert. And a bunch of my friends had tricked me into going to a rave. I liked electronic music a lot, and I didn't know what DJs did. I'd been making music on the computer, but when I went to a rave, I was like, oh, that's what I'm gonna do, I guess, when I finish a song. And then my mom found out it was a rave. I don't think she really knows what a rave is, but she was like, that sounds bad, so I'm gonna ground you. And then that was it for a while for me. But then I came back, and now we're here talking about raves.
All right, so Justin, I know you don't want this to be about you, but it is kind of about you. So I want the music you played just now, and that's released today, is drastically different than the stuff you released like 4 to 5 years ago or even sooner. So I wanted to ask you like how you came to this point of making this kind of music, which is a lot more diverse than what you used to do.
Totally. Well, so, it's funny. A lot of the songs that I just played were actually 3 years old, like made most of them in 2019. And I think one of the biggest things that happened was so in addition to house music, me and my friends, we would do these live shows as a band. Shout out Danny, shout out Ben. Yes. And I feel like one of the single most influential aspects of having a band is being influenced by your friends and the music that they were listening to. And I think, between everyone's tastes, like literally in the van traveling across the country, different people are hopping on the aux cord, and I'm getting inspired, digging deeper into labels like Ilian Tape and Livity Sound, and Lobster Theremin was like a big influence for me, for the past like 4 or 5 years. And I feel like the interesting thing about these songs is I sent them to all these DJs, and I could never get them signed because, I feel like I didn't really understand what I was doing in terms of trying these new things, techno or electro or breaks or whatever. And, when I finally started, it's funny because as I did it more and more, I started getting songs signed that were like fit the box, right? I kept on making electro, and then I started making electro songs that fit the box of these hip electro labels. But these weirdo songs that was just like me fucking around never fit a box. And so the reason it took so long to come out was because they never found a home. And it's like, sometimes, I feel like when you send your music out and you get rejected or you don't find a place for it, sometimes it's a blessing in disguise because getting to do it yourself and make a whole thing out of it can be a beautiful thing. And, I think Voyager, like this whole series, I'm so excited about it because it's not just me, it's so many of my friends around me who are making amazing music that has not found a home yet. And that's really the hope, is just, giving a place for the homies to just do their thing,
Okay, so first of all, everyone in the back who's talking, if you could just stop talking for a few minutes, that'd be good. It's not that long, but we came here for a reason. So if you could just quiet down for a little bit, that'd be great. So Justin, you mentioned 3 or 4 years ago shopping around for labels that no one wanted to sign it because it's too weird. Yeah. But I also feel like even if you started your own label like this 3 or 4 years ago, it wouldn't have been received as much. You wouldn't have these amazing DJs here with you who play the same kind of stuff. Yeah. So what do you think, has something changed in the last 3 to 4 years to make it more acceptable or have people interested in what you're doing now?
Yeah, well, so honestly, I think one of the biggest things, because this idea of doing Fantastic Voyage, we just celebrated our 5-year birthday, by the way. Shout out everyone who was there. And yeah, Anna, Nikki, and Maddie were all on our 5 years of Fantastic Voyage compilation, both with all with amazing songs. And, I feel like one of the biggest things why it took so long to do this is because Benny Bridges went to art school and then was able to do all this amazing art. And we had wanted to do this concept of taking Fantastic Voyage into outer space. But, I felt like there was never really the time to do it because we didn't have that art component. And what Ben has been able to create is just surreal. It's this immersive experience. And then our homie John Rivera has made this website that no one knows about yet. It's where'stheplur.com. And it's we're just nerding out, doing all this weird science fiction stuff. On the back wall, I wrote a mythology for this whole story. And it's just, I don't know. I think that was one big part of it. All the stuff outside of just the music, artwork, concept, etc. And then, I don't know, I think for me, the other labels that I ended up releasing music on and getting those songs signed, I felt like it was almost kind of like doing the homework and like getting the grade, like the pass. And then it's like, okay, I got the grade. Now I can just do it. Did I need to wait for it? I don't think so. But I don't know, just sometimes good things can take a while and you don't need to rush them. So maybe that at the end of the day.
I think it's also interesting because we have 4 very different DJs from very different backgrounds, and without simplifying it too much, you all kind of play a similar kind of music, at least similar in the diversity of what you play in terms of tempos, genre, and I feel like we're now at a moment where there's a lot of DJs like yourselves who are all converging on this kind of like everything at once sound, but it's also like really fun, really positive, really melodic, and so I'm kind of wondering how each of you came to playing the kind of music that you're doing now, and Anna, I want to start with you because you went to a rave when you were 14. Like, what kind of music did you hear there, and like, how did your taste develop over time?
So it was mostly trance at the time, and the main floor that was a big trance moment for the rave scene, and then I was into it because of the MDMA I took, and I had this moment of, where does my body end and everyone else begin, right? I had this moment of like unism and like connectedness and like freedom and like I just, that whole like dance like no one's watching, like that cliche, like that happened for me. And I just felt like I had been plugged into like the universe. And, but I don't make trance. I'm a Jamaican Japanese girl from the Bronx. So sound system culture really informs a lot of what I do, like dance hall and the rhythms of dance hall. That 332 has a lot to do with what I do. I'll use a lot of like Caribbean vocals because it references like where I'm from. I'm very influenced by hip hop. There's a lot of those elements also, regardless of what BPM I'm at. I feel like when I first started DJing, I was playing a lot of like global bass parties. So that's like a mixture of like dance hall, reggaeton, dembow, baile funk, Afro house, Latin house, like all of this stuff under one umbrella. So I always was doing like this, I don't know, multi-genre, kind of multi-BPM thing. But at those parties, I couldn't really play like, maybe I could play like one jungle tune if it was like had a sample that people like recognized from like a really popular like 90s dancehall classic track. But if I went there too hard or too much, like people were like, what's happening? I couldn't play like Gabber or something. They would just be like, because it was like, so I think for me, as like a lot of what I play really just has to do about like, I feel like you can hear where I'm from and like my personal journey. It's really like I grew up in a Latin neighborhood. Like all of these things really influence like what I make and what I like to play. Sorry.
I wanted to specifically ask you, Nikki, when it became okay for you to blend a drum and bass song into a dubstep song.
Yeah, so I feel like it was like when I started releasing music. So before I got any releases, I was initially really trying to make like strict, like kind of traditional house music. So like in the same vein as like Theo Parrish or something like that. That was like what I really liked and wanted to do, but I was terrible at it. I have I can't do it. Because I listened to drum and bass my whole life probably. And so then I started like adding drum and bass elements to it. And then like I found more music like that and then like it kind of, and electro, I don't know, it all kind of fell together. And I just started realizing you could just keep adding new genres every time to like what you're playing. And the first time I like really did it was like I was playing a party and it was like a techno party, but I thought I really liked this track by EPROM called like is EPROM and G Jones or something, like the Acid tape. And I was like, this could fit in a techno set and no one would notice. Yeah. And so that was the really like probably the trigger of the, yeah.
And so, at what point across your transatlantic, trans-Pacific journeys did you discover dance music? And what was the first dance music you were into? Because I feel like your background is the most mysterious, judging from what you said before.
I was just a wee young Australian lass on the snowfields of Down Under. Really, we do have some ski resorts. Anyway, so I was trying to ski, and my parent advised me that I wasn't allowed to go down the mountain without listening to dance music. In my Discman. It wasn't an AirPods, people. It was a real, headpiece, kind of like this, actually. So I was listening to like Groove Armada and Daft Punk while skiing because I was told that's how you learn how to ski properly, is like to the beat of the kick drum and the synth. That's how I started. And that was my first music.
Okay, and then when you're DJing, what kind of stuff were you playing at the very beginning?
At the what, sorry?
At the very beginning of your DJ career.
Oh, okay. Good question. Tough question. Tricky question. There was some of it I didn't quite like. It was just sort of like, okay, basically when I started DJing, I was already working in the music industry for some time on the representation side of things, and I wasn't getting paid enough money. So I said to my bosses, I'm like, guys, you got to pay me more. Like, I can't live off this. And they were like, we don't have any more money for you. Like, who do you think we are? Like, artists? I said, no. They said, okay, teach yourself how to DJ and book yourself for your parties, and then you can get, paid a bit more. And I was like, great. And at the time, access to the DJ gear was much harder because there wasn't these one controllers, or like not everyone had it in their houses. So it was a benefit that the company that I worked for owned this very expensive piece of gear. And I would hang back after work and teach myself how to DJ. But because I was already in the industry and maybe I picked it up quickly, I got thrust into some pretty good gigs before I'd really developed some taste of my own, so I ended up playing, I wouldn't say like commercial, but like just sort of like more kind of like party sets, which one actually enabled me to learn how to mix in different ways much quicker than other people, because the music I was playing wasn't 4/4 sort of quantized. It was like I had to listen to the vocals and I had to like chop and change and like do some fun tricks and whatever. But the stuff that really was getting me going, which I couldn't play at the sets I was given because I was sort of opening up a lot, right, was Mr. Wazo, a lot of like, big beat, like Fatboy Slim and stuff. And actually when I started out producing, it was very breakbeat heavy. And I was thinking when I started DJing, the stuff that I really enjoyed the most was like Boys Noise, breaks, like Fatboy Slim, Wazo, like crazy, like experimental, weird shit that's kind of heavy and fun. And then deeper cuts of that, if that answers your question.
Yes. So I feel like all of you kind of started out in some kind of lane, some more restricted than others, but you all four of you now kind of play similar music. And I'm not lumping you together, but all of you play electro, drum and bass, jungle, techno, some trancey stuff. And I'm wondering, for me, I feel like something happened in the last 4 or 5 years where it became more acceptable for especially like headlining international DJs to play diverse, interesting sets that cross genre.
That came from the UK, I think.
But I'm wondering if all of you had like a moment or something that happened to you that made you realize that you could like play more kinds of diverse music? Or what happened? Oh, yes.
So one thing that like I feel like what Maddie just said about having to play these parties where you're kind of like you need to like trick them.
Yeah.
I feel like that was kind of my experience too. I have a bunch of my high school homies here, and it's like yes, let's go.
Kappa.
I feel like DJing a high school party for a bunch of kids who like don't really want to dance at all, like they just kind of want to chill. I feel like it was this game of how can I trick people to dance, period, and let alone dance to like house music. And I think I was essentially an open format DJ, and I think being an open format DJ, that's something, Anna, you can definitely relate to. Maddie, like for sure. I feel like you end up playing lots of different BPMs, lots of different genres. So that was me early on. And then when I, maybe 5 years into my career, I really wanted to start singing and exploring live music. And it was terrifying because it was like, people want house music, and there's like now guitars and drums on stage, and I was like, I felt like I really needed to do it, and even if people would be disappointed, I just had to give it a try. And once I realized that it would be okay, and you can take a risk and people will can put up with it. Maybe some people are disappointed, but you'll still be there at the end of the night. I don't know, it's funny because for me, like the world of indie music and bands and live music was kind of the first step that I realized like, oh shit, you don't need to just do one thing. And if you can like bring a band on stage, then you can play like other kinds of club music,
Maddie, you mentioned coming from the UK, that vibe. So
Yeah.
can you expand on what you mean?
I just feel like when you hit certain scenes in clubs over in Europe and like I guess here as well, there's just like very particular sounds and boxes that you have to stay into. But I think the UK has always been a place, at least in my opinion, of the places that I'm engaged by, that it really sets the precipice for a lot of like festival bookings around the world. And if you're an artist and you get a residency at one of the big 4 clubs in the UK, like all the festivals globally see that, trickles down to Australia. I'm relatively new here to America, so I'm still kind of figuring out how it works here in that regard. I don't think it has the same effect per se, but I think this is a style that's really bubbling up here and getting more popular. But yeah, and I feel like the UK in particular was the first place to allow artists and DJs to have a little bit more fun. I think we're seeing VTSS on Friday, perhaps, and LSD, will party hop. And she says, she came from like Eastern Europe, and it was very strict. It's very strict there, and where you could go. I don't know if any of you guys have been lucky enough to be allowed into Bergheim, but in the main room, it's straight up like 4/4, just that's it. Just like doi, 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 doi. And it's sick, don't get me wrong. But like, if anyone, and in Panorama you can do a little bit more, but like, it's very, particular, you can't really stray too far from that. And like, as soon as VTSS popped over to the UK, she was like, holy shit, I'm throwing in some different stuff, and everyone's so responsive, So I think there's just an openness there, which has had a trickle-down effect on like a lot of other places in the world. And also just, sometimes we all just move in the same place at the same time. Who knows where it started, but that's my opinion.
So, like, to add to that, I think that it has a bit to do with, like, the rave culture, as we know, it started in the UK. And if you think about, like, when people take their culture and they go to another place, they'll often try to keep it what it was before. Or if they're referencing something, they're like, but this is what it is. This is the ideal. But if it's yours and you're where you are, then you feel free to let it grow, right, and expand. And you're not like, oh, it has to be this crystallization of this idea. And I have a feeling that has a lot to do with, like, why, like, they're not as bothered by, like, but it has to be like this,
And the Brits are just fucking loose cunts, so, like, they don't give a fuck.
I also think like in America people were doing it like it was just in a different way. Like if you saw, there's this guy Andres, if you've ever seen him play, like he will play all kinds of shit. Like I think he also produced like tracks on the what is it, the Detroit, it's like the Slum Village, right? Like he was making hip hop, and then he also makes this like sick house music. And if you see him play, he'll play like soul music and house music and electro and hip hop and techno, like everything. And I think like that, yeah, there's also people who do it here, I guess, but not in like the like really big like mainstream clubs. And part of also doing this or like playing like more abrasive, weird music is because like it's an alternative to these clubs that like just play whack shit all the time. Like you go and like it's like the same fucking hi-hat for like all night. Nobody needs to hear it. It's bad. Like it's repetitive. And so you want to do something new.
It's funny, like you mentioned Andres as like an example of someone in the US who's been doing this for a while. Couldn't agree more. Like, I've seen him play like The Police in the DJ set. Yeah. Like, I'll just do that. But the ultimate irony of like who's really been doing this for like the past 10 years is like Steve Aoki. and like all the EDM DJs.
Yeah.
Too far, Justin. Too far.
But no,
Diplo,
but it's
Diplo
not.
too,
But,
and like Dylan Francis.
but I think this is like the actual irony, because I know everyone here is shaking their heads, but check me out, and I'll just go down on the ship solo. That's fine. Thank you for coming. No, but so this is my perspective from being in LA. Okay, so EDM, it went from being like, first of all, no one called it EDM. That name came up, and it felt like the culture changed. But I think the LA underground warehouse scene, which I've been so emotionally invested in since I was in high school, like end of high school, beginning of college, it felt like it was defined by being not EDM. Like EDM, and I was going to raves prior to that where people were, rainbow colored outfits and candy and all these different genres tossed in the blender. And then the warehouse party scene kind of fit a contrast to that, where often people would be wearing like all black, and it would be, this is a techno party, or this is a deep house party, or these really like minimal and these like very focused, curated type of experiences. And I feel like what's happened in the past 10 years is like now DJs like Solomon and Carl Cox and Fisher and like these other very like genre focused DJs, a lot of like house music and stuff, has kind of like, I feel like almost replaced EDM. And I feel like people who've been going to these warehouse parties for 10 years, where you're like, okay, I'm hearing like this one type of song for 8 hours. I think there is really this interest and excitement around DJs like, everyone here who, you go and you're going to hear different styles the entire night, and you have no idea what's going to be next, and it's really exciting. And I joked that Danny made a comment. He was like, decolonize EDM. And so it's like, I don't know. I think, EDM, it's not a term that you need to identify with, but it's just like, I think it's just kind of ironic. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, as someone who's also been watching the EDM scene for like 10 years and seeing it go from just like Skrillex and Avicii to the worst stuff like Mac J, DJ Snake, etc. Like at some point something happened and it was no longer defined by genre, and so people could bring in more and more stuff. And I saw some like horrible DJs playing good stuff. And Justin and I talked about this before. It's like a lot of EDM DJs are now playing like jungle and drum and bass and some house and techno, because if it's like big and loud enough, it sounds good to their audience. So I feel like now, even though EDM isn't as mainstream as it was 5 years ago, there's a much wider umbrella of sounds.
And on top of that, a lot of these EDM DJs are now doing like a focused house music DJ set, like Carnage and Diplo,
or
and
like Tiesto's tech house set.
Right.
Even though it's not even tech house, it's just
totally. And so now these like EDM DJs, they're abandoning the eclectic approach for like, I want to deliver like a 1 hour house set, which more power to them. But I think it's just interesting, right? It's like the tables are turning, right? Pun. Yeah, there we go. Fuck yeah.
But and so at the same time, I feel like in the quote unquote underground scene around the U.S. and in Europe and in the UK, it's like there's more and more events, parties, and series and labels that are mixing all these sounds into one like fun, positive, up-tempo vibe. Whereas before, like techno only, house only, bass only. And so, again, all of you are representative of this. And Anna, you said before, like, you would try to play like a jungle track with an obvious sample, and like you'd only go so far. So for you, like, when did that start to change? When could you start to get more?
When I started throwing my own parties, yeah, where I was just like, I want to do what I want to do, so like, let me just create a space to do that. So I started a night in New York called Heavy. And that was like me and a DJ that used to tour as a breakcore DJ called DJ Ripley, who's a junglist. And we were just, we were both, she was part of Duddy Arts, this other global bass crew, and we were playing like a party in like Philly or something together. And we drove down, we didn't really know each other. And we had this conversation about like, I have like so much I want to play, but I don't really have anywhere to play it because I feel like it's going to clear the dance floors of the bookings I do get. And obviously you want to do a good job and like, you know, have people have a good time when you show up at a party. You don't want to just be like selfish and be like, I'm just playing this because I feel like it. Like you want people to dance. So we were like talking about feeling that hole, and then we were like, let's just start our own party. Yeah. So that was a party heavy. It was based on just like being able to play whatever the fuck we wanted to play. And also each DJ that we would book was across like genre and scene lines. So we would make sure to like book people that kind of represented different parts of New York City. I realized that like New York City has so much talent, but like people often focus on the people that come from outside. And I think it's like kind of ridiculous because there's so much talent that like lives there. So it's like, let's just like also create a space where our friends can just play whatever the fuck they want to play. It was a lot about like cross-pollination. So it was really just about like creating a space to do that, and then people like seeing you as like someone who does that. So then when you get booked, they kind of know that you're gonna like do whatever the fuck you feel like doing at the time. So it becomes less like you have to do. Like basically inside of New York, I was known for a lot of like, you know, these like Afro-Latin and like hip hop vibes. But outside of New York, I was known for, because of some tracks and stuff I'd put out, like a lot of like juke and footwork. And like 160, like Juke Footwork Jungle, I run a blog called The Footwork Jungle that also showcases like these genres and stuff like that specifically. And so people would book me at a festival. I remember one time I was playing this Canadian festival. The kid like who was stage managing got really excited and decided he wanted to like announce me like before I started my set, and was like, this is like real like juke music. And I was like not intending to play juke until probably like the end of the set. And then I got like really like oh shit, I gotta play some juke. So I like just scramble real fast and like just play like the most random like first juke song I found, you know, just to like, and I had to have a talk with him afterwards. I was like, you don't know what the fuck I'm gonna play. Like, why would you do that? That's really put me on the spot. And I have to say, in terms of like New York City though, like I was a promoter first. I didn't actually intend to ever like be a DJ or producer. And then I started following a lot of local DJs that I fell in love with, and the local New York DJs all are open format, and they just play whatever the fuck they want. Jubilee was one of the first people that inspired me to actually be like, oh, if I was gonna DJ, I'd do it kind of like that. And that's like, you know, someone who was mixing a lot of tempos, a lot of sound system music, a lot of UK music, but also with like East Coast New York club vibes, as well as her Miami bass vibe. And it really spoke to me. Yeah.
Jubilee is like literally the best DJ.
Yeah. Legit.
Maddie, I feel like you and I have very similar tastes, or at least like the music you make and play is like really what I'm interested in. But I'm wondering, again, like how you ended up in this kind of multi-genre, like ravey lane you're in, and how that happened for you.
Okay, so I got my start in Australia, got some cool shows, felt a bit creatively stifled because I wasn't playing what I wanted to play. So I was like, I'm literally just going to fuck off and move to the UK and see how that goes. It was a little bit premature, but I just like felt drawn there, like I needed to go, you know. And I ended up getting a radio show on an underground station called Bellamy Radio. And when I started, I was playing sets kind of like what I did tonight, so sort of percussive, fun, like deep, sort of like interesting sounds. But what I really wanted to play at gigs was jungle, acid, techno, but I'd never really had the opportunity, and it clicked one day. I'm like, oh shit, I should just do this on the radio show. Even though it's at 3 p.m., George Fitzgerald is cruising in after and playing like his deep cuts of the day. Like it was very much not appropriate to play that sort of crazy music. But I did anyway, because I was like, if I'm ever going to find an opportunity, it's here. And then very quickly through the station, I connected with, after I started doing that, things sort of started coming together for me a little bit. And this record label called Club Glow, who also have a show on that station. So it's Denim Audio, Manifesto, Borai, and El Major. They're fucking amazing guys. They approached me, they're like, hey, we love your radio show. Do you want to put some music out? And because I was playing all that stuff, that sort of translated to my production. And it was actually a few years ago at a time where there wasn't many people putting all these different sort of genres in the one track. And the only reason I was doing it because I didn't really care. And I was just like, this is all that I play on the show. I'm going to put acid, breaks, jungle, like house, techno, like in the one track. And that really resonated with Club Glow. And they were doing the same thing at the same time. So I put out a record with them on a a tape with Kessler on the other side, and that, DJ Mag coined that as one of their favorite compilations of last year. So like that was amazing, So it was very much from being like, okay, I don't have these shows yet, but I'm going to do this radio show, the UK being very responsive, and then that translating into my productions in a very no fucks given way. And then it was just at a good time that everyone else was sort of just not caring anymore about the mix of genres.
Yeah, so I mean, the vibe I'm getting, both from what you're saying and what I've experienced, is like now it's like people are invited to just play what they want to play and what makes them them. It's like much more about personal expression than being like a techno or house DJ as it was even a few years ago.
Well, it's just like I guess people felt a little bit more judged a while ago, and then they wanted to stay in their lane. But then there was definitely just like a shift. Everyone and the audience, I just think, stopped caring.
Yeah, and I feel like what you just said, like the no judgment, I feel like is what embodies this, what's happening. Like Nikki being like, I'm gonna play a G. Jones EPROM track in a techno set. It's like, yes, like, why not? I don't know. That's the biggest thing. It's just no judgment. Do what you want. Is it cheesy? Who cares? Like, there's this producer Lobsta B who made a mashup of Call Me Maybe and like Venga Boys, and like Arca is obsessed with it, and it's like EDM, and it's just. Whatever. If it makes you happy, if it makes you dance or feel some kind of way, why judge it? Just let it happen, right?
Yeah, so I feel like there's almost this reversal of values, whereas before the EDM people were just like listening to whatever and getting fucked up and dancing, and underground people were very snobby, and it's almost the other way around now, where the EDM people in festivals are doing like genre sets, and here we are, here everyone's playing crazy music. You just played some insane music, really fast, various tempos, and so I almost feel like. Justin and I talked a bit about like the idea of like rave and new rave, and I think you used the term new rave also. And it's like it almost feels like we're entering some kind of international era of like everyone just playing every kind of music they want, everyone being respectful of each other's choices, and like obviously there are still really annoying techno parties where people only want to hear techno.
Yeah.
But it feels like in terms of like an underground mainstream, like where you can be popular on DJ Mag or Resident Advisor, you can do whatever you want. And I was wondering, like, what does the term like rave mean to everyone? Do you think it's an accurate term? I feel like it's like kind of returning to the roots of dance music, where it's like anything can happen. And I was wondering, I wanted to ask everyone the cheesy question, like, what does rave mean to you? So I guess we can start with Maddie because she has the mic.
Sorry, go. Okay, I kept onto it. Don't take it from me. Sorry, I had a couple wines. Okay, so rave to me, I have like a straight association with just like big warehouses in the 90s and like those old VHS footages of people just like munting off their tits, like bopping around, but like having like the best time because it's like such like and also like these really positive like vocal heavy like big sort of like euphoric tracks, right? But then you think about raves and everyone's like techno raves, but in my mind, like that's not the very specific idea I have of raves from the 90s, which I watch on YouTube and like listen to the music. But you touched on new rave, right? Which is a expression, which is a term that I've been using for what I've been pushing, which is like inspired from that space that I feel like I have an understanding of, but like mixed with even like the percussive like, beats I was playing, tonight, and like techno music and like sort of like old like really euphoric dance tracks that are very community based, but like meeting the modern production advancements that we have in like our music making technology and just like blending it all up together. That's what I call.
Yeah, so like I like that definition, but like I think my definition in my head is like not aesthetic really as much as it's like about the like feeling of like kind of absolute freedom you get when you go to like a good rave or like a good underground party or like whatever kind of party it is, if it's like a queer party or whatever, like it's a place where you can really be yourself, and like when you live in a place where you can't, where you don't feel like like normal or So that's what it is for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to completely agree. Like the term rave, it's more about a state of mind. It's more about a shared experience. Yes, I'm a lot older than probably most of you in this room. And, I was going to raves in the late 90s. And so Plur, like that whole experience actually means something very specific when I think about like music in that era or that time. But it really was just like you said, about a space that was inclusive and where we could just feel free. And I also want to say that like, there's a lot of undergrounds. Like I feel like a lot of like techno people think about like the warehouse parties they do as underground, but as someone who comes from a very different underground, that's very mainstream to me. And like I've always considered that like pretty mainstream. And then the underground spaces, like a lot of queer POC underground spaces, like kind of have always been mixing, at least in the States, have always been mixing a lot of genres. That's not a new thing there. And it's kind of this weird thing where a lot of time, like when something becomes like relevant again to like popular culture, or basically like a lot of straight white males are doing it again, then people are like, oh, it's this new thing. It's like it never really went anywhere. Like we were doing it and still are. Like I recently like had someone like hit me up asking me for recommendations for like queer POC women for like house lineups. And I was like, what kind of house are you looking for? And they were like, oh, like tech house and like bass house. And I was like, well, the issue here is that, like, sure, like there are queer POC people making like house music, and they are playing house music, but they're also playing everything else. And so you're trying to fit these people into like a box of your festival curation, or are you trying to rep this culture, which means they should be able to do whatever they want, instead of trying to like regurgitate an idea of what they're doing that like EDM, like the corporate capitalists decided was acceptable, This is, sort of loaded. But anyways, those are some thoughts.
Well, I mean, wait, let me.
Unbelievable answers. Yeah. I feel like Anna touched upon it. I mean, for me, I think a rave, it's just, peace, love, unity, respect. And I think I feel like whatever you're looking for in a night out that makes you feel good, whatever that is, that's awesome. I feel like these types of values, it's just funny that this music has that, because it's like Plur versus like sex, drugs, rock and roll. It's not that those things aren't fair game at a rave, but it's just like, I think maybe if you're looking for, a place to be yourself, like many of you said, I think that's something beautiful. And maybe, I don't know, has anyone here had like a one-person rave like in your bedroom? Like, yeah, it's like, that's legit, So I don't think it matters where it is, even what kind of music it is. New rave, like, I love that term. And it's funny because for many people, new rave was like a scene in the UK where it was like dance rock. And it was like rock bands playing, they called it rave, but it was just rock. But was it like...
Let's not talk about that.
But whatever. It's like, but I just think I wasn't there. I don't know what it was like really. But if they want to call it rave, like, I don't know. Maybe not.
Well, I mean, but that,
Right.
Well, okay. If anyone should be gatekeeped out of things, it's them. But
brutal. I don't have a horse in this race, but I feel like just in terms of like, I really do think the key thing about this culture, I feel like, is the inclusivity. And it's like Daft Punk, when they did the first Pyramid show, people were like, where are the guitars? They're, what is this music? And then Daft Punk also made like robot rock. And it's like, I don't know. I don't feel like rave music should be defined by like what it isn't. It's rather like, yeah, Plur. Yeah. Hey.
yeah, I think especially here in LA, like they're all the best parties. They're not genre focused, and the ones that are, it kind of feels a little stale, I'm conscious of time. I realize we've run way over. Do you want to end it, or like, I don't know, like we could ask questions to the audience, but I feel like you probably want to play some more music. So
does anyone here want to ask questions for any of the homies? Don't be shy if you do. Anyone? Yeah. Let's go. Get in here, Jesus.
Do you think the change in what we expect when we go to parties in the last couple of years has been because of what we expect when we go to a show, rave, concert, party, whatever, is that the fact that we blur like a producer and a DJ. For example, like you go to a show at a well-established venue, you go see Justin. Do I want to hear like the stuff from home? Whereas if I see Justin at like, pop up here later on tonight, 9 o'clock, where he's going to be actually DJing. So do you feel like this expectation of what we expect out of artists, whether you want to see a producer concert show or to see an actual DJ set and have fun tonight, influences what the music and what the trends have become these past couple of years?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I feel like there's part of it. What I think you're referring to might be just because DJing has become like rock and roll, like Justin was saying. Like Skrillex is like a rock star. They're all rock stars. So DJing is kind of seen as like you go to a rock concert to a lot of people. So a lot of those people who grew up seeing DJs as rock stars, as like you go see them for an hour and you hear their songs, are now discovering like the DJ as a rave DJ, where the DJ is like just in there in the rave with everyone else and just playing music for the rave, it's like almost a totally different thing, but it's like using the same instrument or something. So I guess I feel like it's this same like shifting of layers of like, now EDM is the rock and roll and now raving is the EDM and now, it's like, so now there are raves again, I guess. I don't know.
Anyone else have a question? Going once, going twice. Oh. What, Ian? Oh, no, you do.
Yeah. So, I need to understand. Oh?
There you go. Check.
Check.
Yeah, we're back, baby.
I need to understand where Steve Aoki came into your story earlier.
Yo, so I a couple months ago, no, this is before the pandemic. I was at a festival and, with the hipster snobs, and we kind of like ironically went to see him play, and okay, sure, okay, I love him, I love you, Steve, I love you, dude. I don't know, it's just like EDM DJs. They play gabber, they play trance, they play dubstep, they play trap, they play pop, and it's like, I feel like in terms of the genres that you're listing, I can kind of relate to it. And I think there's songs that within any genre, we can find songs that we love if you look for it. And so that's all that I meant by the comparison, is just the true, like, it's just exploring all these different genres like these EDM DJs. But I don't think that necessarily means that, I don't know, we're all the same at the end of the day. It's all like electronic music. We're all making shit on our computers. We're using the same sample packs, like the same synths. Like, how different is this shit? Like culturally, you could make that argument that there is a difference in terms of the experience, but musically, I don't know. Like, do you disagree or whatever? Get in there.
I disagree.
Let's run it.
I'm sorry, I do disagree. Like when we're talking about EDM, we're talking about an exploitation of a culture that I grew up in.
But I definitely think the cultures are different.
And when we're talking about EDM, we're talking about industry. We're talking about money, we're talking about capitalism. When we're talking about like the rave and the underground, we're talking about culture. And there's a big difference there.
Couldn't agree more. And yeah, I think, and that difference is important too, because I think, if you can't, all the things you described, if that's what's holding it down, it's going to be hard to feel like you can be yourself. And at that point, maybe you could say, is it still a rave if you can't feel like you can be yourself, right? So I would say, just to clarify, it's like the EDM reference, it's just about like the approach to playing all these different genres without the negative aspects of like judgment that happen within like the underground scene, you know? And the fact that like as producers, you can make, I think all of us, you know, make lots of different styles of music and play lots of different types of music, but if it feels like improper to like really, you know, like I'm not saying it's the same as Steve Aoki. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just, it's kind of a joke, but I think that is on a deep level, when I talk, like the turntable's turning, you know, it's like Steve Aoki would now probably do like a 2-hour tech house set, you know, so do you feel me? But yeah, I think everything you said is like, I couldn't agree more. So I hope that, I hope that shines through.
Well, little do you know, we have EDM backstage. And they would
Yes.
love to say something. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, Brad.
I'm curious your guys' thoughts about DJing solo versus back-to-backs and how collaboration and back-to-backs play into the new rave culture.
Who wants to go? Anyone?
Maddie, get in there.
Okay, B2Bs, I think, started getting much more popular in like the last 5 years or so, maybe, when like social media came about and we started following DJs and stuff. So like in a little bit more personal way. So then they're a little bit more at the forefront in this, like when they started putting DJs in live music venues like Dead Mouse and stuff, which is what Nikki was talking about, like turning them into like rock stars. But I mean, they're kind of like parallel to each other, but I'm just saying, like, the larger presence of DJs in like popular culture, I think has really pushed an excitement to see people play together. And I actually think as an artist, it can be a really special thing when you're in, like anything, you definitely need like a certain energy and a certain flow, and they can really make some crazy magic, right? Especially when you see two artists that are quite contrasting and they play together. Coming together, seeing them literally do tracks on the fly, like back to back, like really having no expectation of what the other person's going to play, but you're just like in this flow. I think that can make some really special, magical moments. Sometimes it can be a little bit of a mess, you know, but I think that's a really special part of DJs being part of the party rather than this like rock star vibe where they're like on top of the party, bigger than you. Like, especially when you go to settings where the DJs are like literally like on the floor and it's going around. I think DJs playing together is definitely a really special, ravey, inclusive space that can happen. So I'm all about it for the most part.
I do. One of my favorite moments DJing in recent memory, you know, so I played this, we were doing this back-to-back that was all impromptu at Dirty Bird Campout. Was anyone at Dirty Bird Campout? Yeah, a couple of people. Sweet. And I played this remix that Narcisse, the French, you know, techno producer made of Ellie Goulding. And it's like an EDM remix, essentially. But like, this is a producer who does stuff on like Lobster Theremin and whatnot. And then Nikki played a song by Todd Terje afterwards. And it was just like, it made me like tear up. It was just like so beautiful. And it made musically zero sense. But emotionally, it like, you know, it was like it defied, I meant that like it defied all logic and reason, but emotionally was like the most magical thing ever. And I think that's one of the coolest parts of like the B2B is just when your friend does something you would never have done and it's like your favorite moment of the night.
I think that like the part where it's like if you get to stand like next to someone you like and then like hype them up and then they do something you like and then you like go crazy for that. That's really fun. I mean, it's really fun to do that. That's the best. And like wheeling someone up is great. I don't know.
I think it's just like at the end of the day, like saying like I come from, for me, like early raves, like you didn't even see the DJ most of the time. Like you didn't even know where they were in the venue. Like, you know, they were usually on the floor or somewhere, like you didn't know. You didn't care. We didn't know what people looked like. But at the end of the day, like, getting to do fun shit with your friends. Like, I don't even, honestly, like, I'm a DJ, and yes, I make music and all this other stuff, but, like, at the end of the day, I'm just, like, someone who cares about people and music. And I just am someone that's excited about music, and I want to share that, right? And that feeling of, like, when you get everybody on the same wave, and we're all, like, one thing. And that, to me, is, like, plur. And that, to me, is, like, rave, right? So, like, we're all, like, on that page, and we feel, again, like, it's like we're floating in this, like, euphoria. Like, that's the goal. So back to back with your homies, it's really just, like, doing fun shit with your friends, which is the point.
I think that we should end on that and not say a single word more.
Hey, one more time, make some noise. AK Sports, Nikki Nair, Anna Morgan, Andrew Ryce. It's 9:30. Thank you guys so much for coming out. You can hang out if you'd like. I think that was a great note to end it on. And yeah, for real, if you make music with your friends. If you DJ with your friends. Do it, play whatever you want, have fun. I think that's that's it. Thank you guys.
Police, I got cops in the club. Police, I got